Welcome back to another Void City Reviews podcast. I am Dan.
I'm Toast.
And today, I believe Toast had the topic at hand, and it was something that came up while we were watching The Flash.
Yes.
And you noticed something that led to a conversation we had, and
Right.
we thought we would elaborate here, so take it away.
There was something that I meant to bring up when we were talking about The Flash.
In our review.
Right. And I forgot because we didn't make any notes for that video.
No?
But, Supergirl gets rescued
Yes.
from a bunker.
Yes.
She's seeing sunlight for possibly the first time in years, let's say. Her arm gets a ray of sunshine on it. She immediately gains muscles and a tan and has superpowers. And I'm like, why is both solar and kryptonite so inconsistent across all mediums?
I think there's probably a lot of answers to that question. It's definitely something I have noticed. I would say the short answer is probably very similar as to why they divide people up in Fast and Furious movies into teams. It probably has to do with how long you have in the movie to tell certain aspects, or how long in the comic or the story. So, you know, how quickly do we need it to affect them and wear off so we can save the day? Or, you know, how quickly do we need them to get better? Or how strong do we need the person to be?
I think it's treated as needed.
Yeah.
So,
You guys still complaining about that?
We're talking about kryptonite and solar powers and how they vary over different representations and why that might be and what their differences are.
I do think it's plot dependent. It's whatever the writer director decides needs to happen is just how it's going to function in any particular scene, because it could even vary within a movie or show or whatever.
It can. An example of this, a good example, we could look at Superman Returns. That's one movie.
Sure.
So Kryptonite is in that movie, actual piece of kryptonite from the meteorite that landed in Addis Ababa, or whatever it's called. That's the place I think it's called in the movie, for whatever. It's somewhere in Africa, I think, or where the meteorite landed from Krypton. And that's where Luthor gets kryptonite from in the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. Superman Returns is supposed to be the third movie in the Christopher Reeve timeline. It takes place 5 years after Superman 2 and takes the place of Superman 3 and 4. So Brandon Routh is effectively supposed to be playing Christopher Reeve Superman, and it's supposed to be that same universe. Kind of like how Batman Forever was supposed to be a continuation of Batman Returns, even though the only people that came back were Commissioner Gordon and Alfred. So,
Sure.
Anyways, that aside, Kryptonite's in the movie, real kryptonite from Krypton. Luthor also makes a giant island out of kryptonite,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
But this is kryptonite grown on Earth that's mixed with like Earth minerals. So it's almost like kryptonite from Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. But that was actually red kryptonite that he made. We could get into that later if you wanted.
I'd prefer to not.
God. Oh, you don't want to talk Superman 3? Ugh, who does? Anyway, yeah. So he lands on this island made out of kryptonite, and it has zero effect on him.
Until he learns.
Until someone says, hey, this island's kryptonite, and kicks him in the chest, and suddenly he's like, oh, now I'm dying.
Yeah.
And then he gets stabbed with real kryptonite, and then he's really dying. But then Lois pulls the piece out of him, which actually there was still a piece inside of him. They pulled that later out of the movie, so there's still kryptonite in him. But he's like, I'm good, because I'm going to fly up to the sun now. And he flies in the sun for like 30 seconds. And then he's strong enough to blast a whole island out of the ocean floor with heat vision and lift it and throw it into space away from Earth. And it just makes him sleepy for a week. So they put him in the hospital, hooked up to machines that shouldn't be able to sense anything on him in the first place. And then he just leaves without paying his bill, and everyone's fine with this.
Uh-huh.
Long story short, Kryptonite and Sun do whatever anyone seems to want them to.
Do whatever.
I kind of think they're goofy at this point, at least the Kryptonite part of it.
Yeah. And I think Kryptonite is even worse if you think about it as like, this is a piece from Krypton, and it affects him because it has residual red sun, or is it something else?
See, that's something I've never fully understood either. Like, I always thought, oh, so what? The red sun exploded, so that radiation impregnated these rocks, and so that's why it has this super effect of not just making you normal like the red sun does, but making, like... Because that's the weird thing, too. Sometimes Kryptonite just makes him lose his powers. Sometimes Kryptonite makes him, like, dying. Actively on the floor,
right.
With green veins popping out, like,
Right.
dying.
Yes.
So, like, what? I don't quite get how it works, because I think that's been different throughout the years.
I especially don't get why,
Yeah,
but how is...
the why is very, very, very strange. I don't even think, like, they even tried to explain why in the Christopher Reeve Superman movie, which I know, again, you hate. Like, Luthor's explaining it to Otis, and basically he says the same thing. Like, Otis is even like, well, why would that? And he's like, oh, it's because it's from his home world. And they're all just like, oh, yeah, you're right, Lex. Yep. I'm like, what? So they just decided it would hurt him, and then it did because they said it should? Like, what is Superman? Like, whatever man decides is how he shall be? Like, I don't... I don't understand how that worked at all. Man.
I think in that scene, it was just an employee agreeing with his boss. He's like, I don't want to be in this conversation. Yes. What you said is correct. I'm just going to agree and go.
I don't want it to seem like Miss Tessmacher is smarter than me. Best degree. Yeah, Kryptonite, or meteor rocks, as we knew them for a decade. Even though they named it Kryptonite in season 2, it remained meteor rocks for so long in Smallville, where it had just the most ridiculous of effects.
Whatever was needed that week.
Yeah. It made Clark dying most of the time, but it gave humans magical super abilities, much like Mutagen from Ninja Turtles.
Sure.
His buddy Pete, Pete?
Pete.
Yeah, Pete got some kryptonite and touched some stride gum and turned into Mr. Fantastic. Like, it straight up turned into Ninja Turtles mutagen. For like, there was like a kid who played with bugs, and he is like, oh, there's some kryptonite in this fertilizer I got, and it made it so he could like talk to bugs and had antenna and shit. Like, it was like, I got kryptonite. Like, there'd be people like, they kept putting the kryptonite like in their class rings and shit. Like, they were putting this into like jewelry they were selling in town. Like, you could get, like, Lana had this necklace made out of this rock that murdered her mom. Like, kryptonite murdered her mom, and she wears a necklace of it.
God.
And it somehow doesn't give Lana superpowers, wearing this necklace of it her whole life. But every other kid's like, I got this class ring of kryptonite, and then he's like, hey, look, a shadow, and he fell into it, and now he's a shadow man. Like, come on, like, what's going on? Like,
I've never been more happy that I didn't watch Smallville. What shit.
oh my god. Oh my god.
I'm just trying to figure out, respective to the Flash, how she's in the sunlight for 2.5 seconds and she can push someone to a mountain.
That's 30 miles away. Yeah.
And then other Kryptonians show up
Yeah.
and they instantly have powers, which I guess is pre-established in the movie. So yes,
Which it wasn't well, yeah, Man of Steel established that Clark, who's been on Earth his whole life, took him a while to learn to fly. She's just like, oh, I can do this thing no one told me I could do.
yes,
What? He didn't even know he could do it. Why would she?
because it's needed.
Suddenly she had all, yeah, exactly. And that's what I was getting at, is like they didn't have time to actually have her have an origin, a power scene, getting all her stuff, learning it's so loud. Oh, my eyes shooting things.
Although,
Like, how did she know she had heat vision?
and I wonder what sort of special features will be on the physical disc of this, because there's so much footage, there's so many rewrites. Maybe there
But
was.
how much will they even show us?
Maybe
of
there
that
was a
stuff?
scene that was written,
How
possibly
long was
filmed.
this movie? Was this the one where they said there's like a 4-hour version of this movie somewhere, but that he's like doesn't want anyone to ever see it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
4-hour
there's a
cut.
4-hour
So,
cut of the Flash.
Maybe there was a scene.
Maybe.
But
But when would it have taken place? They got her out of the cell, immediately got captured.
She immediately.
trained her, and then she like.
Well, everyone in this Russian base is dead, so why don't we just hang out here for a bit? I'm sure there's a gym.
But she had
You
all
can
of her
work out.
powers, except heat vision, established by the end of that scene.
I know. It doesn't make any
Oh.
sense.
Same with like, yeah, the sunlight just gave them instantly. Even in Man of Steel, which this took place during, Zod and Feora and all them, like, it took them a while to get
Yes.
used to things on Earth. Like,
Yes.
it was freaking them out. They didn't know what to do. That's the only advantage Clark had. Because otherwise, they were like trained murderers. Like, he was gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh, good thing they had Stabler there. My brother told me that. He watched this movie the other day. He's like, you know what? The problem was is that Stabler wasn't there to help him this time. Where was Guardian? And that's what I really wanted Man of Steel to do, was eventually bring him back as a clone in his own movie as Guardian, which was what they kept calling him through all of Man of Steel. That was his code name, was Guardian. I'm like, holy shit, he's going to have the blue and yellow suit with the shield and be like DC Captain America.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Guardian. He had the
Is he
Captain
blue? Oh,
America
yeah,
outfit
yeah,
with the
yeah,
helmet,
yeah.
and he had like a shield that was a big badge looking
yeah.
thing. That would have been awesome. But it would be Stabler. Christopher Meloni, Stabler
He's
from SVU, was
Getting
in
up
Man
there.
of Steel, and it was awesome. So he's still running around on SVU, kicking asses and chasing after Benson after all these decades. Now that the show has just become Law and Order Special Benson Hour,
yeah.
the whole show is just about her now. Oh, well. Oh, we're getting sidetracked.
What was this about?
This is about kryptonite and solar power.
So that's what I wanted to insert into the Flash review is
Yeah, and that's kind of, its own whole thing because, there are just so many ways. I mean, between movies, shows, cartoons, action figures, comics. Remember that old toy with the magnets in the chest and you got the kryptonite ring and you could put it by him and knock them down? Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Oh, I think that's right. Hell yeah.
Perfect. So I don't know. Like, does anyone know?
Does anyone know why kryptonite affects Superman and what it's supposed to do? I mean, we're not even going to get into, I don't think, all the different colors of kryptonite, because the only one I even know off the top of my head is red. And even in the comics versus everything else, it's different. In the comics,
Yes.
red made him even weaker than green, which implied that green just takes his powers away, whereas they're like red makes him actually like almost dead. But then it also takes away his morality and his inhibitions,
Right.
which is pretty much all it does in any other medium. It just makes him a bad guy who doesn't care about doing bad things. That's all it did in Smallville, is every time he had red kryptonite, he'd be like, hey, I'm going to ask Lana out for real this time, and I'm going to rob a bank. And we're going to stay in a hotel in Metropolis tonight, and it's going to be awesome. And then his parents find out, and he gets grounded. Because his dad always carries that little box with the green kryptonite. He's like, Clark, I'm going to show you the box again. No, Dad. Oh, no.
Oh my God.
Because that's what they did every time. I'm surprised his dad didn't turn into like Lead Box Man from holding the lead box while he was exposed to kryptonite all the time. Or like Dukes of Hazzard Man, he just has like a General
Confederate
Lee
car.
growing out of his ass. Turns into a big orange car. Him and Stride Gumboy can just drive around having adventures.
Starts jumping creeks.
Yeah, talk about Jack Reacher. He was Aquaman in Smallville.
Is that who that is?
Yep, he was Aquaman in Smallville. And now he's friends with Aquaman, Jason Momoa, current. So all these Aquamans just getting together to give Dominic Toretto a hard time.
I feel like worlds are colliding right now.
Oh, so many worlds
I had
are
no
colliding.
idea.
Yeah, yeah. Who's the guy who was going to be Deathstroke?
Mantigliano?
I'm glad you tried to say it, because I wasn't going to. Yeah, he was Flash Thompson in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
What?
He's the guy who tried to punch him and Tobey went,
My God.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So let's talk about 6'4", 30-year-old high school kids. Like, that was the only way they could make Tobey Maguire look like his 30-year-old ass was still in high school, was having that giant come try to fight him. Oh, Kryptonite.
Oh, movies.
I hate it when it's in Spider-Man.
movies.
Yeah, just movies in general. That was an interesting podcast.
It's very weird.
It is a very strange podcast. If
Hopefully-
there's ever any topics you guys want to hear about, hear us ramble on and on about, 'cause we'll just pretty much draw things out of a hat
We
every
certainly
week.
can ramble.
Yes, oh yes. About much more than just McFarlane toys every week. Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know.
That's it.
That's all you got. That's all you got on Kryptonite.
Yeah.
That's all I got on Kryptonite. It makes me wish I'd had brought my Kryptonite. I have a replica of the Christopher Reeve swimming pool murdering Kryptonite.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in my storage unit somewhere.
Oh. Well. I'm Toast. He's Dan.
I am. And this has been Void City Reviews podcast, where we talk about anything and nothing, pretty much.
It's a show about nothing.
Yes. No one's ever done that before. We're pretty sure we're the first ones. It's gonna be terrific. It's gonna be huge.
I think groundbreaking.
It's gonna be, yeah, no one's ever seen anything like this. It's, cut that. Bye.